Welcome to Raising the Grade. Today, my guest is Brian Tibbs. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. It's good to be here with you.
Yeah, thanks for coming out. I know it's always you never know what to expect. I feel like it's been a lot of fun just kind of getting guys in here and then chatting with them.
Yeah.
So tell us just a brief, 10,000 foot view of who is Brian Tibbs.
Well, again, thanks for this opportunity. I'm excited to dig into this. Who am I? Well, I came from an entrepreneurial family. So
Okay.
my dad owned his own small company, small business. And so I was exposed to that kind of a mentality or a lifestyle from an early age. And that really resonated with me. And I knew pretty early on that I wanted to be in business of some kind.
Okay.
So I remember telling my dad, I think I was a senior, probably a junior or senior in high school. And I said, "Hey, Dad, I think I want to major in business." And I thought this was this grand announcement, right? And he goes, "Yeah, oh yeah, no, I think, yeah, we all expected that." And I was like, "What?
Yeah.
Really?" So I ended up going to college, and I did major in business, and I got a business degree. But as soon as I finished that, or a couple of years after I finished college, I actually really kind of felt like I needed to serve in another way. And so I actually accepted a volunteer position in Guatemala to be a volunteer missionary.
How old were you when you did that?
I was 27 when I did that. So my wife and I signed up. We had just gotten married and we moved to Guatemala sight unseen.
Okay, you're moving fast. Back me up.
Okay.
Where were you when this was taking place? Like, where were you living?
I was in my hometown.
Okay.
Meridian, Idaho is where I grew
Okay.
up. So in Idaho, and I met my wife at church, and
Okay.
and we got married, and then we ended up staying overseas for 16 years running this nonprofit. So
Wow. Okay. Killer. Okay, so tell me how you got from Idaho out here.
Okay. So we moved to Guatemala, and then down in South America, we lived in 5 different countries over the 16-year period. Then when we finally decided, okay, this nonprofit chapter of our life is over, and we're going to move back to the United States. And not that we didn't have family roots in Idaho, but we just didn't really have like a home base anywhere.
Yeah,
and so
sure.
we had the luxury, actually, we see it as, where do you want to go?
Yeah, exactly.
And we hadn't lived through a winter, like a cold winter, for 16 years. And so we really didn't want to live in a snowy place, right? And so we looked at Texas and New Mexico and Arizona. Interesting. Okay. And all the while I was running the nonprofit, I was still investing in real estate. And I've always been interested in the Phoenix market.
Okay.
And so that was part of the motivation. And we came here in February when the weather's fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, it's
and
beautiful.
we, drove around the city, and we said, "Hey, this is where we want to come."
Yeah,
so this
for
is
sure.
where we ended up planting roots.
For sure. Yeah. We got here in July.
Okay.
So it was a little different.
A little different experience in July.
We'll stick it out. How long have you been in the Valley?
So we moved here. We bought our house in April. So we came in February, checked it out, said this is where we want to be, bought our house in April, and moved in July 5th. So the day
What
after
year?
4th of July, 2021.
Okay.
So 3 years.
Yeah. Same. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay.
July 7th, I don't remember, 17th or
Okay.
so.
Wow.
Is when we were unpacking the trailer, and
Okay.
it was pretty hot out.
And where'd you come from?
So I came from Oregon,
Okay.
little town called Newburgh, where I spent the
I've been there.
majority of my life. Yeah.
Okay.
It's beautiful wine
Yeah.
country and such. So you've got like these polar opposite worlds cooking here,
Yeah.
where you're in a nonprofit service role, missionary role.
Yeah.
I think I know this, church planting as well.
Yep.
Role. And then the other side of the coin is, investing at the same time.
Right.
How did you live in both of those worlds?
Yeah. Really good question. And, in the nonprofit world, I was the co-founder and the CEO for the entire duration of this church planting organization, right? And organizational leadership and entrepreneurship are those are hand in glove, right? And so I used a lot of the things that I had learned in college and right after college and in kind of the business world to put into practice in the nonprofit.
Let me interrupt you. Did you do anything? Because I'm seeing almost some time maybe for you to hold a job down after college. If it was 27 when you left, were you in industry or business or something for a period of time before you did this?
Yeah. So, I mean, even in college, I started investing in real estate. So as a freshman, I was 19.
Listen up, college kids.
That's right. Get started early. If I've got any advice for young folks, get started early. The earlier you start, the better things are going to be for you.
Okay. Fantastic.
So I started investing at 19 and just kind of every year kept growing my real estate portfolio. But I was also actually working for my dad out of college at his financial services company. So
Perfect.
In management, I wasn't the owner, he was the owner, but I was in management. So kind of learning some of those organizational leadership skills before we decided to head out. So we did leave at 27, but I made the decision at 25, got married at 26 and then headed out.
So it was, I'm getting now methodical, just kind of pretty dun.
Yeah.
And so you're 25, you make the decision, 26, you get married, 27, you leave, the nonprofit's already formed and everything. And you get down there. I think this is really what I wanted to hear the most about, selfishly.
Sure.
But 16 years?
Yeah.
Just out of country?
Yeah.
First question, you're obviously able to keep your citizenship? Or, I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, so we're still American citizens, and we came back every year.
Okay.
For 2 to 6 weeks a year, kind of a thing. And so obviously, our passports are up to date, and we would just get residency in those other countries. So we didn't have permission to draw a salary in country.
Yeah.
We were paid from our American entity, right? And so we didn't go for citizenship anywhere else. We were still citizens of the United States, just residents in the other countries.
How long did it take you to get your Spanish to a spot where you were comfortable with it?
We
and how'd you do it?
Yeah, and backing up too, the nonprofit that I co-founded and ran didn't start until after we had moved from Guatemala to Argentina. So it was over a year later that we actually started our South American operations. So, but when we went to Guatemala, we were just volunteers. We weren't even sure we were going to be there for a long period of time. We signed a 2-year contract, and we, looking at my wife, I was like, well, we can do anything for 2 years. And then, if that doesn't work out, we'll go to the next thing. Yeah. So we weren't there like, we've got to get native in Spanish. We didn't have that mindset, but we wanted to get around and get groceries and that kind of stuff. So we did do a little bit of tutoring, but mostly we just kind of went to church and tried to talk to people in the stores and just kind of pick things up. And so that's the slow way. But I would say that gave us better accents and better depth of knowledge rather than just kind of like book knowledge. Yeah. So it took us 2 years. So we were in Guatemala for a year, and then it took us another year in Argentina before I felt like, okay, I can listen to a conversation, I can have meaningful responses and just kind of start to think in Spanish. Because if you're constantly translating your mother language into some other language, you're choppy and it doesn't come out right. And so, it took 2 years.
I feel you. Was there anything either during that process or since then that has really been like, oh, I wish I had that? I just had somebody ask me, like, how do I get fluent in Spanish, or how do I speak a little bit more Spanish? I try, but I'm not there.
So I would encourage anybody, if you're trying to learn a language, jump into it. There's a lot of software options out there that can get you there. But the best way is to be immersed. Yeah, I agree. And that's a harder thing to do if you live here.
I've gotten a lot better because work demands it.
Yes. So that's a form of immersion. Sure. Yeah, for sure.
So it was, if it was restaurants or construction or now landscaping, I've been able to be immersed in it fairly well. Okay. So you're in Idaho, get married. Do you have kids?
Yeah. So we have 3 kids. Our first kid was born in Guatemala.
Okay.
So we arrived in January of 2004, and our daughter was born in November of 2004.
Okay.
And we left Guatemala in December of 2004. So we left with like a 4-week-old, 5-week-old baby.
Okay.
She had her Guatemalan passport. We had to go to the embassy to get her American passport, and she they had to like force our eyes open
Mhm.
for it to be valid passport kind of a thing. So yeah,
Wow.
just itty bitty little things. So
Wow, that's crazy.
yeah.
That's kind of fun.
And then we had our other 2 kids while we were living in Peru. They were actually born in the US,
Mhm.
but it was while we were living in
Oh,
Peru.
my sister-in-law is from Peru. What part of Peru were you in?
So we lived for 5 years in Arequipa in the
Okay.
south of Peru. We love that town.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, I love to hear her stories and see her pictures. It's just a beautiful, beautiful countryside, just steeped with tradition.
Yeah, yeah.
We could probably go down some long rabbit holes there.
Yeah.
But what was maybe one of your favorite spots out of the 16 years that
Yeah.
you were in South America? What's the place that either, well, maybe we'll do them all. Where would you send other people?
Yeah.
And then maybe it might not be the same place. Where would you go back to?
Yeah. Where would I send people? Everywhere we've been is amazing. Every one of those
Mhm.
countries has something super special to offer.
Right?
In Peru, if you like history, the Incan Empire
Mm-hmm.
has some technology ahead of some of the European stuff
Mm-hmm.
and before them, right?
Mhm.
So there's just some massive civilizations in the Incan Empire, to some extent, the Aztecs and the Mayans as well, which is Guatemala.
Wow.
And so if you're interested in that kind of stuff, you got to
Mhm.
go check that out. Machu
Mhm.
Picchu is
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah.
And even going just into Cusco, which was the capital of the Incan Empire,
Mm-hmm.
there's some construction stuff that blows our minds.
Yeah. Like
Just
pyramids.
the
and-
pyramids and the
Mhm.
walls that are seismic proof, and there's
Mhm.
lots of earthquakes there. So that's a cool place.
Mhm.
For us, we love Peru because we had the deepest connections and relationships there.
Isn't that what ties you anywhere?
Yeah,
Right?
for sure.
Like,
So it's not the
amen to
tourism
that.
per se;
Yeah.
it's the relationships, and
Mhm.
and so we
Was there
love
something
that.
unique about Peruvian culture that made it more
Yeah, interesting.
susceptible to relationships?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Like versus like you go downtown LA and
Yeah.
everybody's a little bit colder, but
I would say all of Latin America is more relationship based than
100.
North America,
100.
right?
Yeah.
And so I think I think I would apply that to all the countries that we lived
Okay.
in. I'm a taskmaster. I'm American. I'm a taskmaster.
You're a
And-
taskmaster, you're an entrepreneur, you're a businessman. I mean, you're checking boxes
Yeah.
for, for fun in your sleep probably.
which rubs against the relational based cultures, right?
Yeah,
And so
it
I had to
does.
learn early on. I remember in Argentina being so frustrated that this one guy was always late to meetings.
Yeah.
And one day he came and I pretty abruptly, I said, we're all sitting here waiting for you. Why are you so
Uh-huh.
late? Oh, I ran into so-and-so and I had to talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
And it clicked for me, of course,
Mm.
because the relationship comes above the task,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now I could argue, but your relationship with me is not as important as your relationship with so-and-so.
Just different.
It
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
It is.
I think
Yeah.
one of the sayings, I don't know where I heard it, but it's not wrong. It's just different.
Yeah. Sometimes it is just wrong, but
Also,
most of the
yeah.
time it's just different.
Yeah, for sure. No. So let's get into a little bit of what you've done maybe since then.
Mhm.
And I guess during the whole time period, because kind of how I know you is, we bumped into each other at a friend's
Right.
get together and just got to talking. What do you do? What did you do? And I had some construction background and
Yeah.
you had some flipping background and you're like, hey, I don't know anybody here. I'm like, I don't either. Let's go learn together.
Yeah.
And so we kind of explored, just helping you find some contractors and vet some guys.
Right.
How's it been, being in that space and dealing with the contracting world
Yeah.
as well as getting into, maybe fix and flips or fix and holds?
Yeah. So when we came back to the US, and this is part of the thinking process, is when we came to the decision that we were done with our nonprofit work.
Mm-hmm.
Our real estate portfolio had grown to the point to where it was providing all of the needs for our family and still able to continue to expand.
Cool.
And so I'm not retired, and I'm not going to probably ever retire.
Don't do it.
In that
Don't buy in the
sense of
hype.
it.
Mm-hmm.
But we're now able to live off of the resources that our real
Praise
estate
God.
portfolio
That's
has created.
fantastic.
And so that's part of the story. So we come back, and I don't have a whole lot to do right off the bat. I go from being in charge of a team of 100 people in the field to I don't have a whole lot to do. So I drove my wife nuts a little bit
believe it.
on that.
Yeah.
But that's what segued us into the next part. So here I am with all this time.
Mm-hmm.
I've done real estate investing, but I've done it all from 5,000 miles away for the most part,
Yeah.
not counting the stuff that I did in college and right thereafter.
Sure.
And so we always just bought stuff off the MLS,
Mm-hmm.
the digital listing service, multiple listing service, and kind of turnkey, buy something that works, turn it into a rental property, and away we go.
Cool.
So when we moved here to Arizona, I was like, oh, maybe we should try, I'm tired of paying retail because it takes forever for the appreciation to go up. And so maybe we can figure out a way. So I went to Google and I typed real estate education. So even though I had multiple millions of dollars of real estate, living off of the proceeds of that, I didn't feel like I knew anything about real estate.
Wow. Okay.
And so one of the things that came up, anybody that's in real estate, you've heard of Bigger Pockets. I'd never heard of Bigger Pockets.
I haven't heard of Bigger Pockets.
Okay. So for people who are professionals in real estate, they're kind of the education go-to source for real estate investing. So
okay.
I started listening to episodes.
I know Robert Kiyosaki. That's it.
He's been on Bigger Pockets podcast. So, and I've read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, of course.
Good one.
And so I started kind of learning about all these things like, oh, you can actually buy a busted up house, fix it, create equity instantly and turn it into a rental. And so I was like, okay, yeah, that's what I want to do. Okay. So that's where we got connected. So I don't do flipping per se. I do buy and hold rentals. And so, so now what we do is we find a property that's really bad shape. We buy it for a steep discount, fix it up the way we want it to function as a rental, and then put it into our rental system.
Yeah, I like that you have that control too, because you're able to really, manipulate how many rooms, where the bathroom is
exactly.
Just,
exactly.
Well, I mean, everything.
Yep.
And since you've already got to put money in, it's not like you buy one that's all done and it's pink inside and you got to go paint it. You're painting anyway.
Exactly.
So you kind of have all these autonomous choices you get to make.
Exactly. That's one of the things that we actually look for is we want something in bad enough shape that we don't feel like that we're wasting resources by tearing everything out and putting in new stuff, right? So it needs to be in pretty bad shape.
How big of a team do you have now? Is it just you and Mama taking care of things, or have
No.
you hired employees? Are you a business here
Yeah.
now?
So when we moved back, we had maybe 3 or 4 people on the team.
Okay.
All part-time. Now we have 11 people, several of them full-time.
Awesome.
Yeah. So our team has grown, and part of that is our portfolio has grown. So when we came back, my initial goal was I wanted to double the portfolio in 2 years.
Cool.
We did it in 18 months.
Cool.
By leveraging what we already had to kind of grow. And now my new goal is to triple in the next 5 years, which we've got 3 years left.
Okay.
And we're at almost double what we were before. So
cool. Looking like you're on track.
We're on track. It's going to take some work to get there, but we're on track. So to get there, we've got, designers on staff. We've got caretakers in the 2 cities where we have properties and some foreign VAs that are helping us out as well. So we've got 11 people on the team.
Have you been pretty diligent about keeping them close to each other, keeping your rentals kind of like proximity close to each other?
Yeah,
and,
we're really
is that
intentional.
for just the fact of just being able to run around to them, or is that more of like, hey, these are the hot spots for rentals? Or,
yeah, both. We want both.
Yeah,
so there are some really great places to have property that are an hour drive for our crew. And so we stay away from those markets. Nothing wrong with them. People can make money there, but we try to keep things.
Not right now.
Yeah. So actually Tempe, where we're at right now, is what we consider to be where we drop the pin. And then it's from here that we decide the distance that we're willing to go. Because this is so central, and we have staff that lives here in Tempe.
It really is. So. Yeah. No, my office is going to be here. I think I'm probably going to end up here. So
yeah. I love Tempe.
Maybe
it's one of my favorite towns. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so central and so easy to get anywhere.
Yeah.
And for me, right now being in the Valley, I want to be able to touch, anywhere I get a call, frankly, I want to service the whole Valley. So name of the show, Raising the Grade.
Yeah.
What are some things that maybe you do in your organization that other people could glean from an open book conversation about, maybe things you do to just improve the daily?
Yeah.
Everybody's got to work, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But what are some things that maybe you either aspire to do and you're maybe not there yet, and that's okay?
Yeah.
Or that you're doing, or that you've seen done, or that you'd like to emulate? Help me out.
Yeah.
Maybe there a little bit.
There's several aspects to that. So for the last, since 2016, we transitioned out of kind of traditional 12-month lease rentals, and we do short-term rentals. And so when we're buying up those busted up properties, we're trying to figure out, how do we make this into a place that people really want to come? And Phoenix is it's a destination city, more so than Boise, which I'm from.
Yeah.
And Scottsdale and Tempe too. And so we are trying to add to that appeal. our places to be the places people want to go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But we also look at it. So when we talk to the neighbors, when we buy a new property, before we do any work, before we do anything, we go talk to the neighbors. This is who we are. And we say, you know, we've bought the kind of the ugliest house on the street.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to fix it up.
Mm-hmm.
And we're hoping that brings up the property values for everybody in this community.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we say, we're going to have contractors. It's going to be dusty and it's going to be noisy for a little while. We apologize in advance.
Mm-hmm.
Here's our number.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got an issue, give us a call because we want to be good neighbors, that kind of a thing.
That's a clean play right there. I like that.
So we really like that. And we really care about the relationships that we have with the neighbors.
And
and
imagine
then
that's hypercritical both ways. You don't want them ticked off.
Yeah,
and
for
you
sure.
also want a phone call if there's, you know, a naked drunk guy on the roof at 3 a.m.
Which we've had stuff eerily close to that situation, right? And when the neighbor knows your name and I've got their number, then they call us and we can deal with it in a good way. So that's one way that we go about it. I also, you know, I would rather have one contractor, we'll use that as an example, one contractor that I can call that I trust and say, I've got a new job, draw me up a bid. We're going to start in a week or whatever, rather than just go get 9 bids to get the lowest price. I want to have a relationship with a vendor in town that trusts me and respects me, will give me a fair price, and that I don't have to, you know, play that game of, I need to get you down another $500 or something like that. I want the person that I can trust.
Yeah. Amen. There's so much built into that statement that you just made about, you know, the value, you know, we want everybody to do well, but maybe just not retire off of this particular job.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so
let's have a long-term relationship and, you know, learn each other's business, and I know what's important to them and they know what's important to me, and work together that way. So that's another way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have subs that have kind of followed me around. I've worked for a couple different places.
Yeah.
And just like that, you know, hey, we're not going to get rich. We're going to be really fair.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're going to have material there on time.
Yeah.
And make it as easy as we can. Make your job in life as easy as we can.
Yep.
Given it's life. What about like employees? It sounds like that was a newer undertaking for you. And I think that's maybe a spot where I'm really curious about. Do you have any goals or aspirations for employees, or is everybody maybe just like at a contract level?
Yeah. So we do rely a lot on virtual assistants, so people living outside the United States to help us with more of our digital stuff. That
for sure,
stuff that you don't have to be on call. And we have 3.
Are they doing any designs for you, or just like web-based stuff? Or when
No,
you say
they're really
digital, what's digital in your world?
So digital in the sense of all of our communications are online with our guests, right?
Oh, yeah.
Now they may have something that's in person, like something breaks, and we've got people on staff in the city that does that as well.
Yep.
But it's most of like, this is your code to get in, this is the instructions to work the laundry and all that kind of stuff. So that we have overseas.
Okay.
But we have 3 goals that we're trying to accomplish in our short-term rental business. The one is we want our guests to have a great experience, a 5-star experience. Number 2, we want our staff to have a great experience. We don't want this just to be a job. We want this to be something where they feel like that they can contribute, that they have a voice, that they have a say in how we do things.
Pride and ownership.
Yeah, pride and ownership, pride in how we're doing that. That when we get a 5-star review from a guest, they feel just as accomplished as the rest of us, because they're the ones that made it happen, right? And then the third one is to maximize returns. Obviously, we're trying to maximize returns. We do have some investors that have jumped on board with us, and so we're trying to maximize their returns as well. So
for sure,
the balance of those 3 things that sometimes are opposing each other are what we're trying to accomplish in the organization.
I like that you have 3 goals that are so clear cut like that.
Yeah.
That's got to help you stay on track.
And it helps our staff know what we're trying to accomplish, right? And it helps us clarify too for what we're trying to do, make sure we're going down the right path.
I know I feel like a broken record sometimes, but I feel I appreciate that. I see a book sitting here on the table. Why did you bring a book here?
Yeah. Well, part of that process of coming back is I had a lot of time on my hands.
Okay.
And as I was talking with people in my nonprofit world, I really tried to keep them separate, right? I didn't talk a lot about the business side in the nonprofit world. I didn't want to be distracted or distract other people. But when I kind of started to announce I'm retiring from ministry work, from mission work, from the field, and we're moving back to the US, people came out of the woodwork saying, well, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do next, right? And I mean, I didn't say nothing, but it was an awkward answer. Like, I don't really, we don't, I don't know.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. And then they would say, well, how are you going to pay the bills?
Yeah.
And-
Wow, people are so people, because I know that happened
Yeah.
50 times minimum.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was happening over and over.
Yep.
And to the people that I had a closer relationship, I did start to kind of go into detail and say, well, listen, we've built a real estate portfolio, and oh yeah, I kind of knew something about that. And it's going to pay the bills. And so I'm just going to focus on that. And there was one particular, I was having lunch with this one guy that I'd worked with really closely for several years.
Okay.
And he just kind of, when you're having a surfacey conversation, you ask the surface, what are you going to do? And blah, blah. But then when it goes to another deeper level, he kind of forgot about the social taboos of talking about money and all this kind of stuff, which is off the limits in the mission world, right? We're not going to talk about money or politics, right? Those are the rules.
I think that's almost carries across a lot of lines.
For sure.
And I don't think it should. I think it's weird
Yes,
that we
I
don't
agree.
talk about money more.
I
and
agree.
that everybody's so uncomfortable talking about money.
I had to do a lot of work on myself to be able to do that. Coming from a pastoral perspective.
You get kind of not shamed about it, but
Yes.
you're definitely shy
100%.
about it. You don't want to come across as this egotistical, like, I'm so rich.
Exactly.
Look at me. But you also don't want to be ignorant and blow it all.
Right.
So there's this happy medium. Well, who do you ask? And so
Yeah.
everybody turns to books and things. So expand on that for me a little bit. How did you go from being uncomfortable to like, okay, this is okay?
Well, that fits right perfect into this conversation I was having with this guy. He forgets the social taboos and he just starts asking me, well, how did you do it? Like, how did you get to this point? And we went through the thing, and the truth is, my answer, I didn't really have an answer. Like, I don't know exactly. I'd never thought about it. Like, what's my
probably
structure?
Asking details. If I know who this guy is, I have a friend like that. They just keep asking me, like, well, nobody's ever asked me that. Like,
yes, exactly. That was it. I'd never articulated. I just did it. And then he said something to me that really kind of stuck with me. He said, could you show me how to do it? Even though I didn't have a good answer as to how I did it. Could you show me? Because I could tell that he was nervous, that, he's working for the church. There's not going to be anything for him at the end of the line when he's too old to produce. And so he's nervous about providing for his family. And so that just was rattling around in my mind. And so then I decided, you know what? I should understand what I did. And if I could help him and the other people who were asking me about it, if I could help him, maybe I should write a white paper or something like that. And that's what gave birth to the hacker method, which is the book that I wrote.
And you just kept going page after page after page. How long did it take you?
It took me about a year to write it. Now I wasn't under a deadline.
What's the process like when you write a book? Like, what's that look like?
That's actually, I started asking that question because I'd never written anything like this before. And so I started doing just kind of some brainstorming and mind mapping and that kind of stuff, and just trying to discover.
Mind mapping?
So the drill that I did was it's like write a central concept in the middle of the page. And then without trying to be organized, you just draw little mind bubbles, like, in the cartoons where you have this bubble where, so just something that springs off of it. And then maybe from that, something else springs off. And then when you're done, you've got this really ugly looking web of brain dump on this page.
I love that you said that word. That's why I bought a double-sided whiteboard.
Oh, right.
I love
brain
dump because I feel better afterwards. And then I can look at it and go, oh, nope, and move it.
Exactly. And then you start to see patterns that you didn't know before.
I'm already mind mapping, man.
There you go.
Okay, keep going.
So yeah, so that's what I had. And then from there, I kind of tried to identify chapters.
Okay.
Right. And then I would take this little bit and move it over here and all this kind of stuff. And that gave form to an early outline. Okay. Which may or may not be disappointing to everybody. None of those ended up in the final version.
Oh, really?
But I had to go through that process to kick off that process. And every page in here has been rewritten 3 or 4 times. Every chapter's been restructured.
It's funny as I look back at what I thought would work in business, and I had ideas about things, and they were stupid, but they sure seemed smart at the moment. So it's made me a lot more cautious, but on the flip side of that, I'm also quick to make a decision or chase after something to figure out if it's good or bad.
Yeah,
and I think that people get stuck in decision anxiety. Yeah, where they don't do anything.
Right.
Not saying go be willy-nilly and just go for it, but I think I've almost by consensus, I think a lot of the books I've been reading lately have been make a decision
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
opposed to not
Absolutely.
is generally
Yep.
going to be better.
Yeah. Yeah. Taking an action and making a mistake is better than not taking any action at
Mhm,
all,
mhm,
because you can learn from your mistake, come back and do it better the next time.
mhm. Well, what's the name of the book again?
Yeah. So it's The Hacker Method,
Okay,
The Unexpected Investor's Guide to Building Wealth,
okay,
even on limited income.
okay. Perfect. How many chapters? Is it on Audible?
It is not
Is
on
it on
Audible.
Amazon or
It's
anywhere
on
else?
Amazon, Barnes
Okay,
and Noble,
okay,
Walmart.com, anywhere where you can buy a book online. It's
okay,
there. I think it's 23 chapters, 24
okay.
chapters,
Have
something like
you
that.
explored Audible?
21. I have. And
Is it?
that's a
Is that a spend
something we'll
or
do
can you?
later on.
Okay, okay,
Kind of as like maybe a book relaunch kind of a thing.
okay.
So yeah, but we just haven't done it yet.
Cool. No, all good. I was just curious because I don't read paperbacks or hardbacks. I
Right.
listen to everything,
Yeah.
and it's just a lot. Now I'm stuck on it. Now it's
Yeah.
opened such a door where I've really been able to grow so much
Right.
that
Right.
it's hard to go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, short of my Bible where I will highlight and
Right.
scratch notes and stuff. I don't do it a whole lot.
Well, I've heard enough people say that it's on the plan to
Cool.
probably next year as kind of like a 1-year re-release type of a thing.
How
So
long's it been out?
it came out late February of this year.
Of just this year?
Yeah.
Dude, that's a big deal.
Yeah. Thank
Congratulations.
you.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah. So I have a vision board, and I encourage everybody to have a vision
Okay.
board. And on the vision board for over 2 years was write a book.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so fun. The day the book came out,
Mm-hmm.
took that off the vision board, and I
Mm-hmm.
replaced it with something else. But
Very cool.
to do like a big benchmark like that, it was a big deal.
Yeah, I do think that's a great word for that, benchmark. Other benchmarks, which I can tell are important to you, is checking things off with your daughter. You
Yeah.
just got back
Yeah.
from a trip. I'm
Yeah.
happy to hear
Yeah.
that. What did you guys do?
Yeah, so we, my youngest daughter and I went to the Grand Canyon, and
Mhm.
you hear New Yorkers have never been to the Statue of Liberty, and Arizonans have never
Mhm.
been to the Grand Canyon.
It's
You know,
not
how
that
can
far,
that be?
guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So we've been here almost 4 years, and we've
Mhm.
never gone. So we went, and that just stems also from us transitioning out of an extremely busy, really 16 years. When we came back, my wife
Yeah.
and I made the commitment that every year, each of us is going to take each kid individually on a 2 or 3 day excursion, something that they want to do.
Awesome.
Spend our time a little bit more intentionally with each kid as they're teenagers and, leaving the house. So
Great word for that.
yeah.
And as a business owner and leader, as a person,
Yeah.
as anyone, I think intentionality gets lost in
Yeah.
the TV.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Mhm.
and I look forward to it. And so Megan, my 13-year-old, she wanted to go to the Grand Canyon. So we
Cool.
went to the Grand Canyon.
I love that. What are do you have books that you have read or listened to that are maybe top shelf for
Yeah.
you and have maybe nudged or impacted you a little bit in
Yeah.
any spheres at all?
Good question. Well, you mentioned Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I
Mhm.
remember reading that book, and I was already inclined that way,
Mhm.
but it made things so clear. The
Mhm.
strange thing is I went back to reread that book, and I had
Mhm.
a hard time getting through it.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's just because I'm in a much different place than I am now, but that's a very powerful book.
Mhm.
Another book that I have that's really resonated with me is The 21 Immutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell.
Okay.
It's older. I think it was written in the 90s.
Good with that.
And today you can't have anything more than the 3 things of anything, right? The
Yeah.
top 3 things, the 3
The
whatever.
book I'm reading right now is the one thing.
The one thing, right? That's the most extreme version. Well, John Maxwell had 21 of them, and I don't
Yeah.
know that I can remember. I could probably remember a few of them.
Oh,
I don't remember all of them, but there's just concepts in there that I apply
Mhm.
all the time
Yeah.
in my leadership.
I
So
love
that's a
that.
great book.
I love that. I will be jotting that down. The 21
21
laws,
Immutable Laws of
immutable
Leadership.
laws of leadership.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. What as you've been in business and stuff, what are some pitfalls you've seen or things that have made you maybe lean into using one contractor or not using one contractor to kind of keep it a little construction-y here?
Yeah. Well, there's a joke in real estate circles
Oh no.
so a contractor there's 3 traits in a contractor. They're quick,
Oh, yes.
They're inexpensive and they're quality, and you only get to pick 2. And
Mhm.
I don't really like that because I'd really
Mhm.
like to have all 3.
Yeah. There's
But
a unicorn out there somewhere waiting
yeah,
for
there's
you.
I hired one, he just never showed up for work. Um,
It's
so
'cause he didn't exist.
yeah, it's 'cause it wasn't real, it wasn't
Yeah.
real. The bid was not real. So, for me, the absolute most important is not that you never screw up,
Mhm.
not that you don't make a mistake in the work, there's a flaw,
Yeah.
but that you're honest with me and you
Mhm.
do what you said you're gonna do.
Mhm.
And if there's an instance where you can't do what you said you're gonna do, you're gonna call me up, you're gonna be upfront about it, and you're say, "Hey, you know what? I tried.
Mhm.
There's this, and this, and this. I can't do it. What do we do now?"
Mhm.
What I can't tolerate is people who won't communicate with me,
Mhm.
who miss deadlines and they don't tell you what's going on,
Mhm.
who misappropriate funds.
Mhm.
Hey, I need a draw, and then they use that money on somebody else's project.
Oops.
Just stuff like that.
Yeah.
I just can't. I can't tolerate that. So I've got to have honesty and transparency with
Mhm.
anybody I work with, and I'm willing to pay more for that person
Mhm.
than somebody who will save me a little bit of money
Well,
and
and
won't
you
be
and you
honest.
have to. Not only do you have to be willing to, but those people are gonna typically just demand a little bit more because they know,
Yeah.
look, I'm doing things nobody else is
Yeah.
doing on a consistent
Yeah.
level. I think that kind of nudges me towards something, just recently it's kind of reiterating, is expectations and reality. If
Right.
those two things can be on par, people in general, specifically customers,
Yeah.
can be happy,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? And so that's a good point. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any advice for anybody choosing or selecting a contractor? In terms, have you ever just rolled the dice and maybe hired somebody that was not licensed, bonded, and insured just to see what would happen? Because I deal with it a lot. Is
Yeah.
that something where you were like, okay, I tried it, or have you stayed away from that, like with a passion, or?
Well, I tell you what, no matter how the references are, no
Mm-hmm,
matter how they present themselves, you're
mm-hmm.
always rolling the dice to a certain extent.
I mean,
You
this is fair.
you don't know how they're going to perform until they start to perform.
This is
And
fair.
so
For
yeah,
you, yeah, I know, even if and that is I mean, here's the thing, I think that only I think I'm gonna push back and say that only
okay,
goes one way, and that is if somebody has consistently got, 2 and 3-star reviews, that's pretty
yeah,
much what you're getting,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
but on
for
the
sure,
5-star review guys, of course, we want all 5 stars,
sure,
as do you,
yeah,
because that carries a certain weight in the marketplace, but I mean, most humans dip at some point,
yeah,
and it's just you don't want to be caught in the
yep.
dip, right?
Or they've been doing great and now they're ready to retire or do something else and they're
Yep.
on the tail end,
Hmm. What
So
kind of questions might you ask to maybe scoot around that, like
to try to get back, that's a great question.
try to curb that
I don't know if
possibility?
there's really every interview I've ever done or every screening process I've ever
Hmm.
done is different
Hmm.
because I'm trying to read the individual and
Yeah.
I'm trying to use all my past experience to
Hmm.
kind of filter and it. But I will say, if I get the sense that they're being dishonest with me,
Hmm.
I'm done. I'm
Hmm.
just that's a big thing for
So
me.
clear contracts, I think one of
Yep.
the things that is if you're trying to kind of like be ultra vague
Hmm.
on purpose. Some things require vagueness
Yeah.
because you
Sure.
might have to discover
Of
something.
course. Yeah.
But if you're trying to be ultra vague, like new water line, okay, well, what kind of pipe are you going to use? Don't
Yeah.
worry about it,
Right. 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 Right.
or
Right.
things like that. So I think that's really important. Anything else you look for in maybe the submittal package or the process? How important are plans to you? I guess now
Yeah.
it sounds like you're in house in those.
Yeah.
You've kind of taken that on. Before, I think like when I met you, you were maybe looking for that person,
Yeah. So
actually.
we'll only use an architect or a draftsman
Mhm.
if we're going to go for a permit,
Mhm.
and if we're going for a permit, to kind of go back to something you said before, we got to have somebody with a
Yep.
rook or whatever the number is. Yeah,
ROC.
ROC.
Mhm.
So we have to have that
Mhm.
in order to put them on the permit. Um, but I'm in general going to want to have them be a licensed person
Mhm.
anyway because they
Mhm.
have something to lose,
Mhm.
right? If something
Mhm.
doesn't go right. So, and contracts, we absolutely have a contract with every project that we
Mhm.
have
Mhm.
that's very clear. I have like a 20-page checklist, room by room,
Mhm.
item by item, like from switches to outlets
Good
to
job.
everything. size of the trim, whether the trim just does the baseboards or goes around the doors and everything.
How much of that kind of is in the book? Is there much of that in the book, or is there like a secondary place where you're teaching and helping and sharing that stuff, or maybe that's coming? I don't know.
Great question. So it's not in the book, that level of detail. The hacker method is really answering my friend's question of, can you teach me? Right. So it's higher level.
Yep.
These are the 6 steps. Yes, exactly.
Instead of like, here's the list you need.
Right. Now there's practical stuff in there, but it's not necessarily drilling in how to manage a construction project. Right.
But that is essentially what you're teaching in the hacker method is to do that. So is there a place to go to get some more of that out of you?
So yes. So then the second piece, after we launched the book, we launched the Unexpected Investor Community.
What is this?
So the Unexpected Investor Community is, I lead a group of people that are wanting to break free from the paycheck to paycheck trap.
Okay.
So I'm basically answering my buddy's question, can you teach me?
Okay.
So the book is the high level.
Okay. Just get your foot in the door.
Yeah, for $20, you can get the high level stuff and you can do it. And then you join the community and we do coaching calls. We do one-on-ones. We have small groups, like goal setting small groups. And we have a chat that we're on all the time.
I love this.
Yes.
So you're a teacher.
Yes.
Okay. So let's dig in here a little bit more. When did you launch this? Just after
this
the
came
book?
out February 27th.
Okay.
And the community started in March some point.
I remember you talking about this. This is fun. From last year.
Yeah.
Last year. Okay.
Well, 2024.
Yeah, no. I mean, no, I think I remember you talking about this last year.
Oh, I'm sure it was cooking.
Yeah, I feel like it was Thanksgiving or Christmas party.
Okay, yeah.
That they'd had. Okay, so is this online? Is it on YouTube? Is it on?
So you can go to my website, unexpectedinvestor.com/community. That's where all the details of it about.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we have members in Australia, we have members in Mexico, we have members, and then in the US, of course, Canada. And so we are all over the place. We are going to start having in-person events, but everything right now, like the coaching is all on Zoom, the pod calls, the weekly accountability calls that our members, they make up the pods and they lead themselves, but we're talking through the concepts. Okay. Those are all on Zoom or on Google Meet or whatever they choose to do it on. Sure. And then we have, WhatsApp chat groups. And so, yeah, it's all digital. It's all online.
Bro, that is awesome.
Yeah.
How much time a week are you spending on this? That sounds like this might start to be a little bit more than.
This is what I mean, obviously I have to run the real estate company, but I prefer to do this.
Is this your passion?
Yeah. This is how I can help other people.
This is how you can raise the grade.
Anybody can do it. Everybody can do it. And it just, when I came back and typed real estate education, I just needed to be shown the way, but I had the willingness and the desire to go make it happen. So if somebody has the willingness and the desire to make it happen,
it's one thing to read it.
Show you the way.
It's another thing to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the community is a place where people can have the accountability, not just learn the resources, but have the accountability to go make it happen. Because sometimes
people are poking each other a little bit, like, "Hey, did you end up doing that deal? Yeah. What's going on with that?"
That's the point of the small groups, the accountability groups. Is hey, I'm going to buy my first rental property. Well, you could say that for 10 years and not pull the trigger. And so the group is there not to, I mean, obviously we're not going to beat you over the head, but if you say, I want
positive encouragement.
How many deals did you analyze last week? I want you to text me and ask me. So that's the whole point of that.
Okay. And so there's the availability here for people to even go to a deeper level and get one-on-one with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so this is,
and I love it.
I think we've really unearthed your passion and where I see you really, really blowing up. Frankly, just knowing you, knowing your past, being acquaintances with you as long as I have. Right. This is going to take off for you. Okay,
I would love to spend as much time in this as I can.
That's fantastic. I mean, I feel like I'm hearing you're almost at a spot where you could almost do that. How close are you to autopiloting kind of the investment stuff? But I mean, you've set some lofty goals there too. Yeah. Double it and then triple it. Yeah.
That's going to take some effort. The whole idea of passive investing. I mean, you can kind of get to a passive investing stage, but once you're doing like full passive, you're paying all your profits to other people to do the work. And so I want the profits. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to lead my team, and I'm going to try
Mm-hmm.
to hire good people that can do the
Mm-hmm.
work without me
Mm-hmm.
micromanaging them.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes work.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, I mean, if I could have my time half and half, I'd be
Mm-hmm.
very happy with that.
Awesome. What's it at right now?
Yeah, it's close to that. It's
Mm-hmm.
close to that.
You
Yeah.
talked about hiring people. What are the top 2 or 3 traits
Yeah.
or things that you look for? I know you've got a list.
Yes, I
know you
do.
do.
I do. I do. So this is actually credit to a guy I've been working with that was working with me in the nonprofit
Pause.
and now works with
So
me
you're
here.
is this a mentor?
No, well, I mean, I was the CEO and he was my right hand in the
Gotcha.
nonprofit.
Okay. Okay.
I'm the CEO in this, and he's my right man here, right?
Love
Right
it.
hand. And so he was in charge of personnel in the nonprofit.
Okay.
And so he came up with this formula, these 3 things. Number 1, quality of spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the most important. It's not,
Mm-hmm.
are you a Harvard MBA
Mm-hmm.
with a whole bunch of stuff in your head?
Mm-hmm.
What's your spirit like? Are you somebody that we want to be around?
Yeah.
And can we trust you and all that
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff? Number 2 is loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
Not like I will crawl across glass for you, but I care about my job. I care about the company. I care
Have
about the
they-
3 goals that we have.
Yeah. Okay. I would call that buy-in.
Sure.
So mine would be, hire for character,
Yeah.
train for skill, present buy-in.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the third one is ability. And
Yeah.
they're in that order,
Mm-hmm.
right? You do have to have some ability,
Mm-hmm.
but if your quality of spirit is off the charts,
Mm-hmm.
we can teach you the ability stuff.
You can get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody didn't know something at some point,
Absolutely.
even if they're an expert
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. This has been fun to kind of uncover. So I touched on it and then I thought about it. Is dad the mentor? Who would you attribute as the person that you really look up to? If there's one, it could be a group, it could be many, but is there one that you're like, honestly?
Certainly in my obviously growing up, my dad, well, I mean, that's not the case for everybody, right? I kind of think, well, dad's always the mentor.
Yeah, no.
My dad was my mentor.
That's awesome.
Growing up and in my early stage, I really looked up to him. I still think that my dad is the best manager I've ever met. I mean, the level of detail that he can take care of and still function at a high level. Like some people are real detail wonks, but they can't see the big picture. My dad could do both. And I really look up to that. Since then, in the nonprofit world, I wouldn't say there's any one specific mentor that I had a board of directors and I really looked up to all of them. Okay. I'll say this one guy, Dennis Linnell. If you see this, Dennis, I really appreciate you.
How fun.
He worked for me first,
Mm-hmm.
then his time ended, and then I asked him to join the board. So then he became my boss. And
that's awesome.
And he is an amazing guy. In the real estate world, which I did learn a fair bit, and I talk about this in my book from both my father and my grandfather, that really kind of exposed me to the idea. But there's a guy named George Formanian out of Southern California, San Diego, that has built probably thousands of apartment units and is a very, very successful developer in San Diego. And I met him through the nonprofit. And I just asked him one time, hey, would you mentor me? And I opened my books up to him and I talked about what I was going, and he was amazing help in that regard. So I would say those 3 people.
Wow. Fun.
Yeah.
Congratulations on being vulnerable. I think that it's really hard for people to do what you did and open up your books, for example, or come here and spill it,
I love it.
What's allowed you to do that?
Well, I don't know. Good question. I think, going back to one of our first things we were talking about, learning a new language. So if you're in the software, you're not really going to be in a situation where you're going to thoroughly embarrass yourself in front of other people.
It's got to happen.
Because you don't know how to say a word. And every word I've learned, well, that's a stretch. The fact that I'm fluent in Spanish is because I made thousands of mistakes that embarrassed me to no end. Right?
Amen. I love it.
So that's humbling.
One of my vendors, I think I mentioned this earlier, but he had asked me, how did you get so good at Spanish? And I'm okay. I'm excited to get better. But I jokingly wrote a lot of beers and a lot of mistakes,
Yes.
when I was younger. I don't encourage that anymore. It's just not a great idea. But the point is I was, inhibition free.
Yeah.
And so then
Yeah.
I would be willing to, I wasn't so embarrassed and what are they going to think of me? I would just talk and it wouldn't make any sense. And then I would get corrected and then I would learn. And then I started to apply that more and more later. And that is the ticket.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm kind of excited. I've seen some really neat AI platforms right now that are basically trying to mimic immersion.
Yeah.
And then they kind of correct you. Like, did you mean this?
I bet you could do that right now with ChatGPT.
Actually, I'm really toying with it. I forget what it's called. But there's a paid service that I'm really thinking about where you talk to an AI character and then they correct you and stuff. But it's just like, it's like having a tutor just on hand at all times, you know, because
that could be the solution when you're not living in the culture. That could be this. I could see that happening because I've done a little bit of translation stuff with the ChatGPT. It's very good. It's very smart.
ChatGPT is phenomenal.
It's incredible. Yeah.
It's helped me. I just got a text the other day from somebody in one of my networks, and she was like, "Hey, how do I do this thing that I saw that you did?" You know, and I was like, "I don't no idea, but I know ChatGPT knows how." And so if you ask with these prompts, you're probably going to get it, you know.
Right.
And it worked, you know, because I've asked ChatGPT about Excel and business and to look over this legal contract. Are there any red flags here? Should I contact a lawyer? Like it's been a great asset at nothing per month for I've got the paid version because it's like it does unlimited stuff for you basically. So much. It's $20 right now. It's so much quicker and so much better. Okay, well, what's next? So we've really covered a lot. So and I think I've got a good picture of past Brian, a really good picture of present Brian. Can you tell me about future Brian? Can you tell me about 20 years from now when you're looking in a mirror and you're going,
yeah, that's a great question. And I've actually started doing an exercise where I try to talk to that person.
Okay.
The future use, I think, is the name of the process. And I went to a real estate summit, and a guy named Rich Fetke, who's a fantastic investor, very, very accomplished, very successful. And he was hired to do this exercise with us at this conference. And so he basically encouraged you to picture in your mind, what are your long-term goals? And then, you know, he turned the lights off, close your eyes, turn the lights off. And he said, okay, now leave your current body, fly into the future and whatever that goal is that you want to have accomplished. And then you're going to go talk to the version of you that accomplished those goals.
Wow.
And you're going to ask for advice. You're going to ask for encouragement. You're going to say, what am I doing wrong today? What do I need to change? And I've actually put that into my daily process.
Wow.
So I talk to my future self.
Have you gotten into an argument with your future self?
No, I haven't. Because I'm such a taskmaster that I go through it fairly quickly now because I've done it so many times. But it is remarkable, the advice that I find from myself. And I know that sounds a little weird, a little mysterious,
it
mystical.
Does, but I kind of like it. I get it. It makes sense.
It works for me. And it's amazing how often the advice is stop and smell the flowers versus work harder, right? Wow. Now, sometimes it is. If I'm being lazy, sometimes it's like, hey, you need to really get this done. Stop putting this thing off. But you know, when I was a teenager and I went in the wrong direction for a little while, I had somebody ask me like, later on, I had somebody ask me who could have gotten to you at that point.
What a good question.
And my answer was only somebody, my older version of myself. I was the only one I trusted. Right. And so maybe this could be a breakthrough for somebody if they would be willing to talk to the version of themselves that accomplished the goal, right? Gotten rid of all the head stuff,
through the fire,
gone through all the problems, and able to be honest with yourself.
That's good stuff. I like that. It's just a mind shift. It's kind of a different way of thinking about, because I mean, admit it or not, we all have conversations with ourselves, you know, how am I going to go about this? Or, you know, who should I hire? Or what's my next move in business? But to be so methodical, intentional about going beyond the accomplished version of that thing, that barrier you're trying to get through, and kind of looking back at it and saying, no, you got to go this way. That's kind of fun. I like that. And it was a real estate conference. Who was the guy that?
Rich Fetke. Yeah. So he's a syndicator. So he brings on investors and they buy real estate and they do a great job.
Wow. Fun stuff. What are maybe some of the better? So let's focus in on maybe your core. Is there any events, like you mentioned this real estate event? Is there any one event or one thing that's a must do for anybody that wants to do what you're doing?
Yeah, good question. Events, Bigger Pockets. It's gone through a bit of it's even going through a transition now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that I came in contact with it a few years ago, where I think it was really at its prime.
Okay.
But Bigger Pockets is kind of the central focus for real estate investing education.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're wanting to get into the investing or the real estate world, in some sense, I would suggest you do that. They have BPCon, the Bigger Pockets conference every year. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's in either October or April or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. So
And have you been?
I've gone. I went once. I went in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't gone back since. I'm
Mm-hmm.
a little busy now. The book came
It's
out.
good.
Got stuff going on. But
This is
for somebody
good.
who's wanting to get plugged in,
Mm-hmm.
you can meet so many people, get
Mhm.
exposed to the concepts that are out there. So I would say that's a good place to
I think
start.
you've really provided like almost this turnkey. If you're serious, I mean, I think this episode really is a turnkey. We walked through everything about you and how you did it and how to get there.
Right.
It's get and read the book.
Yeah.
It's get plugged into your website,
Yep.
and maybe you hit a live conference or something, and then be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And grab a mentor.
Yeah. Mentorship. I think if there's one thing that somebody could do to give themselves the best return on their investment,
Mm-hmm.
is to spend time with a mentor. Find somebody that's doing what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many people that want to make progress, but they get in their own way. They don't take the steps.
Mhm.
They doubt themselves, or they find
Mhm.
excuses not to take the step forward.
Yeah.
So my advice is find a mentor, and then when the mentor fleshes out what you want to do and gives
Mhm.
their stamp of approval,
Mhm.
just do it.
Just
Just
run
take
with
action.
that. Put
Yep.
the foot on the gas
Yep.
and go.
And you might make a mistake, and you might
Mhm.
skin your knee,
Mm-hmm.
but that's the part of life. You got to learn, and then you get
Yeah.
back up and you do it again.
Amen. Oh, fantastic, Brian. This was next level.
Wow, thank you.
This has
It was
been
a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. I just want to thank you and say, I would love to have you back on and
Yeah, I'd
in
love to
6
come back.
months, a
Yeah,
year,
absolutely.
check
Yeah.
in on
Yeah,
see
yeah,
if
yeah.
you've met your goals
Yeah.
or had
Hey,
any
there's some
other.
accountability. I like it.
Hey, there you go. I like it, man. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for the invitation. I
Mhm.
appreciate it.
We'll have you back.
Sounds good.
Yep. Have a good night.
Thanks, man.
See ya.